So good evening to one and all to an exciting season 2 of Opportunities Australia Mentorship Conclave. On behalf of our entire PGC team, I would like to welcome you all to day 1 of Opportunities Australia Mentorship Conclave, proudly brought to you by UNSW Postgraduate Council, ARC UNSW, and Opportunities Australia. I'm your host, Saurabh Kaura, and I'm a coursework officer on the Postgraduate Council. The Postgraduate Council is a student body that represents, supports, and advocates for all the postgraduate students. If you have any concerns or questions, please do reach out to us. And before we begin with this mega event, I would also like to start the event by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples, the traditional custodians of the lands where each of our UNSW campuses are located, and all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, elders past, present, and emerging, and also their communities who have shared and practiced their teachings over thousands of years. We recognize the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples' ongoing leadership and contributions, including to business, education, and industry. It's also an absolute pleasure to be hosting this mega event today. Also joining me for this event as a co-host will be my colleague, Emmy, who is a part of the PGC team and is currently a counselor on the Postgraduate Council. Over to you, Emmy.
Thanks, Sarah. So welcome everyone, and we have officially started the event for today. It is an absolute honor to co-host this conclave and have such renowned speakers joining us today. So today, the Postgraduate Council has collaborated with Opportunities Australia and ARC UNSW to make this event happen. So now comes to the exciting part of having the ball rolling of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclave in which we have invited 8 reputed speakers who will be speaking across 2 days. Also, just to let everyone know that this session is going on to be recorded on Zoom and on live on Facebook. So if anyone is not comfortable sharing their videos during the session, they can just turn their camera off. But we also recommend the participants to turn off the audio while speakers are presenting. So let's get the ball rolling with our first speaker tonight, Mr. Kumar Jha, who is the founder of Opportunities Australia. Kumar has interest in community service and founded Opportunities Australia to provide people with free mentoring and employment opportunities. OA have grown to over 70 volunteers in 1 year, all of whom are universities qualified and successful professionals such as doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc. So Kumar also have joined emergency service, marine rescue, and SES. He also volunteers at charities like Phoenix, Tribal Warriors, Wayside Chapel, which help the homeless. He's also a self-motivated and passionate advertising and marketing executive with over 20 years of experience, has worked with brands like Citibank, Kmart, Integral Energy, Renaissance Hotels, and Swiss Hotel, to name a few. It is an absolute pleasure for me to invite you as our first speaker for tonight. Over to you. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Emmy, and thanks, Saurabh. It's a great event. We are doing it for the second time, so it's great to have you all. And welcome everyone, the guests. I hope you get to enjoy the event for 2 days. So we are really looking forward to it. Thanks for all the details. I believe, I don't have much to explain about myself, but I will try here. Okay, I will share my screen. Can you share my screen? Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, Kumar,
yes, we can
see your screen.
Sure. I came from humble beginning, born in India, towards the eastern side. So born in 79, in a family that started a charity, had a big family. And yeah, eventually after the death of my grandfather, we started a charity. And we started a primary school and a hospital. One of my uncle was a doctor as well. So everyone chipped in. We got a bit of government support as well. So this was done for people who could not afford it. So this is where I've learned from the get-go. So every summer vacation and funerals and weddings, I used to go there to my grandfather's village. And this is where I've learned. And then after going through all the qualifications, etc., I came to Australia in 2004. I came as an international student, so I did a master's degree in information systems in CQU, Rockhampton. And after that, I applied for my permanent residency. I got that. That course was in demand, so that was well structured. I did a bit of work in different organizations, and then I went for studies again, another master's degree with UNSW in 2010, and I did another master's degree in PR and advertising. And both of these universities, they asked me to be a mentor there, so I did join, and I'm continuing the mentoring program with UNSW now. In 2014, I started to volunteer at Winnie's as well to raise funds for homeless people. Besides that, I joined emergency services in Australia like Marine Rescue New South Wales and SES. So we rescue people at the time of marine rescue. We are rescuing people during weekend or even on weekday as well. We get call from OOO. And if people are in water, the boats are stranded or someone is drowning, we receive a call. And we go out there with our boats or jet ski and we rescue people, we rescue animals as well. And SES are called at the time of flood or tsunami. So, you would have seen a lot of disasters, in the past years. So SES are the people to receive a call, and I volunteer with all these organizations whenever I can. Besides that, I also volunteer with a couple of other great charities. One is Indigenous charity called Tribal Warrior, and they have kids from trauma backgrounds. So, those kids who haven't been treated well from their family, or kids have been taken away from their family, etc. Big trauma. And we get to do boxing, and, boxing is just a way to start the conversation. And, we get to have a deeper conversation, and that's a mentoring program there. Tribal Warriors, an Indigenous charity based out of Redfern. Then very proud to volunteer up at Wayside Chapel as well. So that's a church group, but they serve the homeless people and the people who are suffering. And then this year, luckily I was invited to be a guest speaker up at UNSW to talk about social entrepreneurship. So happy to be part of UNSW on the next level. These are some of the pictures. I have created a collage here. From top left, I was sitting with the governor of a prison out there in Windsor. So we talked about running a program to help out the inmates, so who are about to come out. So this program we have been working on, COVID happened, and it delayed the process, but this will start soon. The second picture from top is me in the mentoring program with a bunch of mentees there. Then Red Cross, I like to go there every fortnight to a month to donate plasma or blood. And then with Tribal Warrior and Our Big Kitchen, we distribute food. So you can see the van there. Next to that is people from Our Big Kitchen. So that's a charity that cooks a lot of food in bulk, and that goes out to various other charities and communities. Bottom left is a picture from CEO Sleep Out. So that's from St. Vincent de Paul. I have been part of that group for the past 7 years, raising money for the homeless people. And every year they raise over $10 million or so, Australia-wide. And this money goes towards the welfare of homeless people. In Sydney, they have a hostel called Matthew Talbot, where they give shelter to the homeless men. And they have 100 seats. And besides that, they are individual homes as well, where there are lots of families live. They're helping our people from Afghanistan as well right now, those who have arrived in Sydney recently. After that, was good to join Oz Harvest, me wearing the yellow t-shirt. So Oz Harvest is an established charity that cooks food for plenty of people who are distressed. So enjoyed my time there. And then the next picture is delivering Christmas goodies to the people in hospitals. So that was a nice trip, and I did that with a bunch of motorbike people. So I joined a motorbike group in King's Cross. So we did toy run. toy and gifts run. And then the next picture is the last picture is with the kids who I talked about from trauma, from Travel Warrior. So yeah, lovely kids, and I love them. I love them to bits. It's been quite some time that I have seen them face to face, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them. So next stage, Opportunities Australia. How did Opportunities Australia arrive? Came to picture. So 1st of July 2020, I believe there was more than food and shelter, that could be provided to the people in need, and decided to help people before they fell into desperate situations. I've been to university and I'm connected with lots of, people who have established themselves, CEOs and company owners, etc. And I thought it would be best to bring all the network together, put all the eggs in one basket and be able to start something which could really benefit people, because I have seen so many people suffering out here, refugees, migrants, indigenous people, all that. There are plenty of well-qualified people out here, who can't find the right jobs. And, they suffer for years. And, I've seen several people, driving taxis and delivering pizzas, on the back of the push bikes. It really breaks my heart. And then there is a lot of job mismatch as well. So that is also a job mismatch, but, plenty of people who are working just as an admin. Even, actual doctors, medical doctors, they can't even find the right job. So, seeing all these cases for, over a decade. I've been in Australia for around 18 years now. So I have seen this for 18 years now. And I thought, okay, that's about time now. And COVID hit economy when everyone was suffering. So I thought, okay, why not do it? So I did. So started Opportunities Australia to help people by making them job ready and connecting them to employment opportunities. And within 15 months of time, we have a team of over 70 dedicated volunteers, and all of them are well-qualified university graduates. Some of them are coming from UNSW as well. And a proud team here, like people range from doctors, engineers, lawyers, marketing experts, some of them you're going to see tonight. So it's a great team to have, and very proud of that. Some of the things I could advise to the students, you take it or leave it. Be the hardest worker and the humblest person in the room. This is what I've seen over and over again. You got to nail it. In order, being a migrant, it gets difficult for people. So, no matter who you are, you've got to be the hardest worker in the room, and you've got to be humble as well. You've got to really own it. Honesty is absolutely the best policy. I've been there, done that, like trying to twist the facts, etc. It does not work. So I must say, just be honest, because you cannot keep on fabricating lies. Be consistent. It creates discipline, trust, and make things easier. I can't emphasize more on that. Consistency is the key. Like people either in the news area or charity or any of the fields, whichever field you're in, you got to be consistent with your work. You got to show up, on time, and you got to deliver on an ongoing basis. You can't just deliver for 1 month and then after, be slack, etc. So, that does not create a positive impact in the eyes of your professors or your managers, etc. So you got to really be consistent if you want to grow. And if you happen to be consistent on an ongoing basis, that makes the work so easy for you. It's, trust me. I wake up every morning, between 4 or 5 o'clock, and and I do my thing. I go for a walk after checking my emails, going through all the things, social media, etc. I do a bit of meditation as well. That's the first thing that I do. And then after, I come to my computer, go through all the emails and, ideas. I am a morning person. So, all the ideas come to me in the morning, after meditation, and I just write those down and, do whatever admin work that I needed to do. And then after, I go for a walk. And sometimes I walk with Saurabh as well. I have the pleasure to do the walk with Saurabh and some other, students from UNSW and friends. So that is good. So, you got to look after your health before you can look after anything else. So, that's very important. And you got to prioritize things. So, challenge the status quo. That's the next thing. Whenever needed, don't just accept things. So, I do live by it. There are a lot of times, when people are said, okay, this is what you do, this is how we do it, and that's what you're going to do as well. I do use my logic. I do question things as well. It's like, is that really the right way to do? Do we have to do things that way? So I do challenge. And you'd be surprised, how many times you could find a new way, you could find a better way, after negotiating on things and after thinking hard. You got to think on your feet. Be just is, be kind, be logical, and compassionate. This is a world where we need things from one another, and we cohabitate. We cannot just live by ourselves. We got to live by help of one another. We don't know, when we need support from other people. So we got to be compassionate about people. Earlier, as I talked about, we help out people of, color and other people who are suffering. So you got to be compassionate out there. Good karma is the best thing you could do. Act fearless when needed to, for example, in interviews or meeting. Because fear stops you from performing to your best ability. I do totally believe that, because when I was younger, I would get scared in meetings, interviews, etc. I could give you the best example here. Is when I started my ad agency. That was around 7 years ago, and I used to sit in front of big CEOs. Like, I've had a chance to meet with the CEOs of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and several other. And I wouldn't believe myself. And, sometimes I would get nervous. And the way to get through your nervousness is by believing in yourself and, just not worrying about anything. It's like, thinking that you have got nothing to lose. Just go with that feeling and you'd be right. Meditate, which I talked about, and rest well. As a focused mind wins you half the battle. You got to live by this. Resting is the key. You got to have a sleep of at least 6 hours. So between 6 to 8 hours, that's good. Have some downtime to rejuvenate. So, people work hard. You might be students, full time, and you'd be working hard, studying hard, working hard. And, sometimes you don't have any downtime, and it kills creativity. So you got to have a bit of a downtime. Take your morning walk or take some time during weekend. You must do that. These things are like, give more, expect less in relationship. When you expect less, it's amazing what you could do. Just live by that. Appreciate more and complain less. It's amazing. Respect more and judge less. Enjoy life every day, as we don't know what's around the corner. We just saw COVID. Hang out with the people who believe what you believe. That's how you'll find co-founders if you're going to start your own company, or life partners, or best friends. Believe in what you believe. Don't just make compromises and have co-founders or best friends or something. It's like, okay, I need something from that person, and that's why that person becomes my business partner or life partner. Things are not going to work that way. You've got to, and once you start to partner up with the people, those who believe in what you believe, you're going to fly. This is so important. So always find like-minded people. And you are the end result of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Choose very wisely, very carefully. Besides that, a bit of a financial, bit of an introduction of my profile. As you already know, so I've worked in a bunch of companies. I'm also a council candidate for the city of Sydney. So charity is one thing that I'm doing for the communities, but I would like to also have another job in which I am also going to help out the communities. So council looks after, the city of Sydney. I have been in the city of Sydney for just over 15 years now, and I believe that it's time for me to serve the community on a deeper level. And this is the first step to do that. So working in the government and be able to be part of lots of council activities. Council gets to manage areas like library, community events, roads, infrastructure. Even there are lots of startup hubs out there in the city of Sydney, so they manage lots of buildings and initiatives as well. So I've got great dreams about the city of Sydney to begin with, and yeah, see what happens after that. So that's pretty much it from my side. If you wanted to follow my journey, there's Twitter, which is fairly new, but you could follow that, and LinkedIn, you could follow that as well. You can connect with me too. So yeah, that's a bit of a short intro by me. Some of the pictures that I have added in here. I love motorbikes. I have been riding since I was probably 12 or 14. I didn't even have a driver's license. I grew up in India, where they don't check your, identities and all. We used to ride, without helmets, those were the primitive times. So yeah, I mean, that was how old I was, when I started to ride. And this is like, this is very close to my heart. And here I am, the picture onto the left. I was on the snow actually, at the snowy mountain in winter. So I went for a camping trip there in the snow. We pitched our tents. So it was around that time. A bit of singing, after that, when I was growing up. I loved music. And something interesting that happened to me was me seeing the Aurora Borealis, which is out there in Iceland. So that was very beautiful to be able to see that. So, if I was to recommend something fun for you to do, I mean, career and all, that's okay, but you got to have fun, right? Yeah, so that's the best thing I could recommend for you is to go see Aurora Borealis or Aurora Australis. So you go to the Nordic nation to see Aurora Borealis, but you can also go to the south of Australia, Tasmania, or in New Zealand to be able to see that. It happens in winter, and it's got its own magical formula. So you don't know when it's happening. There are some apps for that, and then there are some social media groups for that. So just follow them, and they would tell you. So they give you a window of 2-3 days. So if you could pack up your bags quickly and be able to, just book a air ticket quickly, you would be there and be able to see this magical event. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kumar, for those inspiring words. It's time now to move to the next speaker for this evening, Aditi Basin. She is a strategic entrepreneur mindset and a hands-on professional with 14 plus years of experience across sales and marketing. Her experience spans into healthcare, consumer durables, travel, education, and food industries across the Asia-Pacific regions. Having focused on both B2C and B2B marketing category launches and business development, right from incubation to in-market launch, she brings in that varied multicultural experience to the team. Her expertise would be creating new categories and is bringing a data-driven marketing approach to different businesses. She has worked with some of the best brands in the industry, including Philips, Baxter, Akzo Nobel, and Lassafree. So it's my pleasure to invite you to the stage, Aditi, to speak today on this wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I think it's really overwhelming in terms of being able to share my career journey with some of the best in the. I wouldn't really call you guys from the council, postgraduate council. I think it's really exciting. Just give me a second while I just share my screen. Just let me know if you're able to.
We can see your screen, Aditi.
Awesome. Just put it on there. Awesome. So thank you everybody to give this opportunity to listen to me on Tuesday evening, a little bit of cloudy weather, and I think our moods are going to be just a little bit more exciting. So that's where the color and that's where the marketing brings about a lot of color. So that's me, Aditi, sort of given a good little bit of an introduction, but that's from the professional standpoint, you know. So just a few days back in India, where I come from, we just culminated a festival wherein we celebrate the female deities, you know, the sheer energy that the female form brings in. And there are different images, etc., that really talk about, you know, how women are supposed to be doing a lot of multitasking with, you know, one image of this goddess with like some 10 hands, 5 here, 5 there, and, you know, doing a lot of things. So I was just kind of a little overwhelmed. I just thought that, you know, when I'm putting in my introduction, what should I kind of talk about here first? Should it be a marketer? Should it be from a corporate perspective? You know, what should it be? And I was like, just let's get the laundry list there, because that is what brings about the sheer persona of a person. So that's me, mom to 2 beautiful kids, a 7-year and a 3-year-old. My husband works here in the IT industry. I'm an entrepreneur. I've set up a business back in India, and I'm doing a few businesses here in Australia as well. A marketer. I've also been a BBC presenter for arts and culture back for the work that I did in India. I am a teacher. I'm a mentor for Opportunities Australia. Thanks, Kumar, for having given us the opportunity to be able to give back to the society and sharing our journey. I'm a traveler as well. So Kumar, I'm definitely going to go back and look at, you know, I've just kind of put the details as you've shared in my list and my travel bucket list. So I hope I'm able to do that as well. So I'm a traveler. I can really, just the other day, I think we had a good discussion and I was like, you know, I've been to about 40 odd countries and I've actually gone and enjoyed it. So that's what I am. I'm an avid reader, and I'm also a mental health worker. You know, that is something which just defines me. The image here, the picture here that you see, it's for my old back, you know, days in India, and that's where you see me back, nicely traditional attire, and that's what I am, embracing my diversity, talking to a good multicultural base of people here. Now, this little girl, so that's just pardon the image there. So, you know, it's an old image which I scanned and I was like, you know, there is this whole social media campaign which is running around with this little girl thing about embracing your dreams as a child, as a girl. And I thought, you know, this little girl, is that me? This little girl, is that not me? You know, and I was like, let's just put it there. Let's just see how it goes, right? So just a few nuggets here about myself. Girl child with equal opportunities, but limited rights. Growing up in India, that's bound to happen. Stayed in a joint family. My family was a migrant family from Pakistan. So I can really associate a lot of points that, you know, Kumar has also kind of tried to work on with the pain points there. My family definitely, you know, not very similar to what Kumar did also mention, but a family of social workers. Back home in India, you know, I'll probably just take a little bit of a show off kind of a thing here, but you know, the kind of work that was done, it's something which is really spoken about pretty well. So that's how my childhood was, being the eldest child in the family. A lot of burden I would carry and kind of, you know, want to do a lot of things all together. So that's where you see my qualifications. You know, I did pretty well in my secondary school. And I remember my father having a conversation with one of his corporate colleagues who said, don't get her married very early, you know, because she has the potential. Let her do something for herself. And I still remember having that, you know, when my father came back out of that conversation and he told this to me. And I was like, are you even kidding me? Do you think that could ever happen? I am just in class 10. But, you know, that's the kind of place also that we come in from. And I'm kind of, you know, I was very fortunate to actually having grown up in a society which did really have a lot of oppression amongst the girl child. But thanks to my family, thanks to the kind of open-mindedness, I was really given the opportunity, like I said. Things started doing well. I was getting scholarships after scholarships and really doing a massive thing with respect to my studies and the academic front. Call me a bit of a bookworm, maybe. That's what I was. So that's why this little girl could have been me. this little girl sitting here in front of me, in front of everybody, definitely not the bookworm. So higher secondary happened on the behest of my mother. I was probably, I decided to take up both biology as well as maths because I couldn't decide. And my mom was very, very insistent. She said, you definitely need to kind of, take 2 more years because I'm not very sure if you're going to, decide. Massive, thing around that. There was a big battle after that, engineering versus statistics. I did well in my higher secondary, by the way, as well. So, again, the battle was around engineering, which is more of a boys and a male-driven industry, and the kind of the schools, etc., the colleges, very, very male-focused. Versus statistics. Now, statistics was something which I enjoyed. I was really a scholarship holder for mathematics. I loved it. So I thought maybe, let's just try and see that. And my heart kind of told me that I should do stats, and that's what I did eventually. So it was a good kind of thing in India. Again, statistics hadn't started taking up at that stage. So pretty interesting, but that's how it was. Post statistics, a bachelor's in stats, and I was like, what next? An acad-driven girl, didn't want to get married, wanted to do something for career. Let's see how that goes. So I tried my attempts for an MBA, which was really a tough one. And I was like, it's not happening. I wasn't able to get it the first time. So again, I was shit scared that literally, pardon my science here, but I was kind of really scared that if I wasn't doing anything else, they'd just get me married or just, So I was like, let's just enroll for an MSc in operational research, which was part of stats. So it was a dual thing, which was something that I was doing, probably just putting my foot in both the boats there. My recommendation, do not do that. So I think that is another big lesson. Just go ahead with your focus. So thankfully for me, I knew that what my North Star is, which was to get into an MBA. And I kind of was able to kind of make it as a game changer, which happened. After the MBA, I started working different countries, different companies, as sort of mentioned. I'll talk about that as well. And also, as I was kind of also discussing, working, I decided to go ahead with a PhD. Now, I am currently also pursuing my PhD, so that's another thing. I'm doing it from India, so it's a bit of a little tricky thing, but I hope in my lifetime I'll be able to finish it. Let's see how that is. For my geographic coordinates, like I said, I've been across different countries, worked in the different parts of the world. So have that real exposure. And I think that's a real good exposure. Even if you're not able to kind of work in different parts of the world, definitely embrace that diversity, whichever way. And I think thanks to COVID, everybody sitting in the different parts of the world is able to do that. So I would really recommend that for everyone. A real quick one here. This is not LinkedIn. I just put things here. I know everybody's going to get my LinkedIn handle, so it's going to be not something that I want to really spend a lot of time in. But this is how, I also, after my MBA, decided my professional journey should be. Started off as a marketing specialist, product manager, then that typical thing of, you've done statistics, why don't you try something else? You get those bouts of really going ahead and trying out that adventure. That streak was there in me, and I decided to get into supply chain, and I realized that wasn't working out for me. So make mistakes and come back. That's another advice which I feel, So I was able to do that. I was able to make my foray back into marketing. I've done, this was while my stint at Philips and with Baxter. And then I kind of like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. So I co-founded a travel and a tech startup. Now, this is a travel one, and I think this was probably the best and the most fulfilling period for me. And I did so many things, right from being caught up in a legal battle to being threatened to be thrown into the jail for just kind of talking about an artifact which was there. I've just gone through everything there, but that's kind of really made it so exciting. Here I am today as a marketing consultant. I work part-time. I also I'm running I would say it's more of a multicultural parenting website called Arda, which is all about, kind of talking about the trials and the tribulations that parents of multicultural backgrounds face, apart from working at Mulesoft. Some of the guiding principles from my perspective, I wouldn't really make it very academic. When I was growing up, I think my father had a huge garden and he was really fond of plants. So I think most of my life lessons have been things that I've learned from the house plants. And a few things that, I kind of did realize as I kind of spoke about was while I was growing up, I did realize, and these are two of my father's real important principles, and I really can vouch my life for it, is about speed and accuracy. Speed and accuracy, consistency. And I would say life is not a race, definitely, but you definitely need to work with accuracy, consistency, and speed. Because that's the progress, that is what kind of it also does count. It's not, life is definitely not a marathon. It is kind of, you need to really be consistent and walk towards or run towards, as you might want to. North Star, never let go of your North Star in terms of what is it that you would want to do. Again, back in India, there is a massive mythological book as in one called the Gita, which Hindus kind of really write by. And my guiding principle is that there, in that there is a world's best archer at that time called Arjuna, and how he is able to kind of become the best amongst his, amongst his teachers just by the sheer focus. And, he would just kind of say that that is all that I could always see and think about. Less is more. Now, here, very important concept, and I've realized that as a marketer, as a human being, I think being very sharp, crisp, and precise, those are the things that you would need to focus on. I know it's a bit tough because we as human beings are pretty greedy. We want to have everything. I've done that in my life as well, with trying to really put my feet in both the boats, maths and biology, MBA and MSc, everything together. But I've realized that it's important to really focus on just a few things. I think, again, about diversity, coming from the background that I do for the multicultural thing, there have been, when I came to Australia about 3 years back, in the initial phases, though I had traveled so much, though I'd worked in a lot of corporates, I think somewhere I was not very, very confident about my diversity. I wasn't really confident about sharing probably an image on this forum kind of a thing, wearing an Indian attire. But now I've decided, and I've also realized the kind of, the value that I'm able to provide with my own diversity. So go for it, embrace it completely. And I feel that, that is something that you should never let go of as you kind of progress in your career journey. Outgrow yourself, prepare yourself for the next role, also, as you kind of getting into a new job, into a new assignment, into a new course, just prepare yourself for the next one. Do not, because when you become complacent, and I can speak about this for myself, for a lot of others as well, it's just about the spot on the right side, as you see, as plants grow, it's really important to put them into the new pot. They're not the small seeds that you're kind of talking about. So like I said, that's a beautiful lesson that I've realized, but for growth, you definitely need to keep moving on. Just stagnation just kind of gets it off. It's okay to make mistakes. I think this is something which I've really loved. I was just reading the new book, which is by one of my favorite leaders, Indira Nooyi, who's also the former chairman and CEO of Pepsi. It's a beautiful book which kind of talks about her experiences, her challenges, and her wins. And I think this is one of the quotes which I have really enjoyed, because it's not nobody is perfect. Nobody is, absolutely there, but you need to keep making mistakes to be able to keep moving on. As an entrepreneur, as a management consultant, as an educationalist, anyone and everyone, we need to keep moving on from that aspect, and be a little crazy, be a little optimistic. And I think that's how you would want to kind of, take things on. There's another last point, which I didn't mention with respect to my, the points that I've kind of really enjoyed. a self-made person is more of an oxymoron, essentially, So do not be scared of really going ahead and taking the help of people, and also acknowledge it with humility and with gratitude. We don't need to be like climbers, but it's absolutely great to build your network. By network in today's age, I would say definitely rely a lot on the social media, on your PR, whatever, because most of us tend to shy away from doing that. We feel that, when we have the skills, we have the technicalities, that's not needed, or that's not my cup of tea. Even if it's not, go ahead and do it. You really don't know how it's kind of going to change you. So that's about it from this aspect. Again, a very, very nice and a busy one. I feel, I thought probably as a marketer, I should have something academic like I have always been. But, as I was just talking to somebody on another forum for marketing, and they were kind of sharing, and they asked me, they're like, isn't marketing the most easiest thing to do? I mean, why? And why do you need to be a marketeer to be able to sell what you have? And I was like, honestly, it is the easiest, but it entails so many details that if you don't know how you were able to do it, it just kind of fizzles out. So think of yourself as a brand. Think of yourself as a product whose features and, what is it that you bring to the table as well. So I feel, I've just kind of put that up here, but go ahead, reach me in case, want to have a discussion on any of these things. I'm not an expert, completely hands up here, but I love to talk about all of these. 14 years, I think I've known a few of them. I worked on a few things. I'll be happy to share my experience. And you can reach me at Aditi Basin on LinkedIn, and that's my Gmail address as well. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. And I would just bring a stop here. I don't know how to, okay, that's how it is. All right, thank you. Am I able to, yeah, I've done that.
Yep. Thank you so much, Adi. It was amazing presentation. Like, I definitely can feel you when you said, like, people ask you about, like, why do you have to do marketing? It's such an easy thing, because as myself as a marketer, I do get a lot of those questions as well. So definitely could relate to that. So thank you so much for the presentation on your career journey and your background, your life, everything. So yeah, definitely will inspire a lot of students in here, especially for myself. So let's moving ahead to our next speaker, Mr. John Gougoulis. John is a strategic thought leader with an extensive project and team management expertise with solid education network around Australia and overseas, and success in building and maintaining productive customer relationships. He's proud of his record to date in delivering system and individual improvement to very high standards in guiding, coaching, and developing people, and in building organization capacity and transforming practice in an ethical and sustainable manner. It is my absolute delight to welcome you today, John. Sorry, John, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
Thanks, Jimmy. I don't think I wrote that. Did I write that little introduction? I don't think I did. It was
maybe someone else wrote it for you.
Thank you so much. It was nice. And thank you for the opportunity to share my mistakes and what I've learned from my mistakes, like Aditi and others have as well. Okay. Does that mean you can't see that?
No,
yes,
we can
we
see
can
that.
see that.
Okay. Where do I start? When you've been around as long as I have, there are key moments in your life that have made a difference to you. And you'll find out that over time, you've probably had some already, in your lives. There are key moments that actually change your life a little bit. And when I talk about my life and my work, I'm not one of those people that talks about a work-life balance, because for me, I've enjoyed my work over the years so much. It's such an integral part of who I am, actually part of my life. So the idea for me is my life balance is ensuring that I have obviously my family first, and then my friends, colleagues, time I have to myself for reading or traveling, and also my work. And most recently in my work, working, well, in the last 12, 15 years, actually working remotely quite a bit, working virtually. So I've set myself up for what's happened in the last 18 months to 2 years and across the world. But the key moment, I wanted to share with you a story about a key moment in my life, if I may, which I think put me on a trajectory to building where I've got to at the moment. I was about, when I was born in Australia, by the way, my parents were Greek. They came out here from Greece in the 50s. I was born here. And when I went to school, I couldn't speak English and I couldn't understand English because my grandmother had raised me while my parents were working in Australia. So I went to school with no English. Luckily, I went to a school where there were a lot of migrants, a lot of recent migrants, and a lot of, I don't think there were any Anglo-Saxons. We were mostly migrants in that school, so I was quite fortunate. And by the time I got to, and I enjoyed school, I was a good boy and everything, and I learned English very quickly. And when I got to year 7, grade 7, for the first time ever, my teacher called in my father. And as some of you may know, we come from multicultural backgrounds. When you call in your father to come into a school, the first thing your father thinks about is that something's gone wrong. And anyway, the teacher, this is about before the end of term 1, teacher sat down, my father sat me down and said to my father, Mr. Gougoulis, your son, he's a good boy, but he's not going to do well when he goes to high school. He's got a bit of a problem, and his problem is he doesn't read. And he needs to read more, and his vocabulary needs to improve, and his English needs to improve, and otherwise he won't succeed. And you know, when I thought about it, in all those years, I hadn't read a book. I had not owned a book. I hadn't read a book. My parents didn't. They were hardworking, working class people, but we didn't own books. But I remember my father, straight after that meeting, the first thing he did was he took me down to a shop, and he said, buy a book. I think it was Coles or somewhere, and I bought my first book, which I still have. And my first book was Tom Sawyer. Now, the reason I mention this is because I read that book and I loved it, and I didn't stop reading from then on. And that changed my whole, well, it changed my life, because I think I went to high school. My English still wasn't that good, but because I was reading more, because I was engaged more, I became more literate, I was able to actually do well at school. That teacher made a difference to my life, and I've heard lots of stories over my working life, because I'm a teacher. I started as a teacher, on how teachers at various stages do make a difference to some kids, and that's what makes teaching one of the best careers you could ever have, because you can impact on the life of children. Sometimes you don't even know it until you meet some of them, as I have many years later, who remind you that you taught them, and you taught them well, or you were kind to them, or you were generous with your time, or you looked after them, or you, whatever it was. that was a key moment in my life, and there have been others, and I just wanted to share that one with you because it put me on a pathway to where I am and where I've been. And I've been in education for, wow, nearly 40 years. But having been in education for 40 years, I've actually had I counted it, I had to do it for this presentation, 16 different jobs in those years. And they've all been education roles. And they've been in 4 different contexts at a local, state, national, and international level. So I've had a really lovely career. I've enjoyed my career. It's all been in education, and I've done a whole different lot of jobs. Teacher, school coordinator, a district advisor. I then went and was director of K-10 education in WA. I've worked in the Northern Territory, and then I've worked nationally. I've lived and worked in Melbourne and Sydney for a number of years. And then I went to Dubai. I was in Dubai for 4 years. I've worked in, and currently I'm working with Vanuatu and helping Vanuatu develop their curriculum and their assessment programs. But what's interesting, and I hesitate to say this because all the advice always is you have to plan your careers and always think about, do a lot of career planning. And I was told that as well. Just plan everything out. I don't think I planned anything, I have to say. So none of my career trajectory that you see there was actually planned. I had I took opportunities whenever I could. And a lot of these different jobs I had weren't promotions necessarily, they were job enrichments. So it would mean I would move over here or do a job over there, but my career has not been linear in that way, and there's no method to that madness. I took jobs because they were interesting. I took jobs because I was bored in the jobs I was in, and I found, and on reflection, I tend to like work that is innovative, where there's change happening, and where you can start something and watch it grow and start implementing something. So I like that kind of work. And so I've it's been 4 or 5 years maximum I've been in any particular job. And it just so happens job opportunities come and I've taken them because they've been exciting or because I think I could learn from it and grow. And hence my trajectory in my work. Can I just say, but the one thing that I find, and it's only been on reflection in the last few years, the thing that's connected me to all these jobs, they're all about education, but they're also about kids, and they're about developing and helping teachers become better teachers and school leaders to become better school leaders and to have our schools be better schools, and all because one of the things that's driving me, I think, is the need to see as many kids get a good quality education as possible. This whole equity thing around education and the divide that occurs, all my teaching was in disadvantaged schools. I was working with kids who were in communities, low SES communities, who had some challenges at home with their families, whose life experiences were being impacted by what's happening at home. And school was an opportunity to make a difference. And I see that as a critical part of my work and my life. And so that's been driving me. So what have I learned? This is my last slide, you'll be happy to know. Oh, by the way, those photos are all photos I've taken in my favorite place in Greece, because I love going back to Greece, and I haven't been able to go back for the last 2 or 3 years. So at some point I want to go back because I really enjoy it there. So what have I learned? Well, I've learned mainly from my mistakes. And maybe I'll just take each of these boxes one at a time and just say a couple of things for each one. First one, I'll just go around from the top across. What I've learned You know, it's fantastic if you can be in a workplace or somewhere where you've got a person who you can, who's your soulmate. I call them a soulmate, but somebody who you can interact with, be honest with, be upfront with, who can be supportive of you, and you can be supportive of them and be very collegiate with them. And if you can develop good relationships in your work and in life, but let's focus on work, work becomes so much more enjoyable, becomes so much more productive. So always think about how important it is to be a good member of a team and to have good people around you, and to try and get to know people really well. One of the things I didn't do early on was I didn't get to know my colleagues, my work colleagues. You know, they were just the people I worked with, but it wasn't until you start to get more familiar with them or understand a little bit about where they've come from, why they're thinking the way they're thinking, why they're doing what they're doing, and they get to know you. It just makes work more productive and far more enjoyable. To be ethical, loyal, and respectful. I don't know if I learned that, but I suppose I did, probably from my parents. But I've always been that, and I value that in people. And when people don't always give it back to you, it can be a challenge for you, but that doesn't mean you change. And so for me, loyalty and respect is critical in the workplace, particularly in working with colleagues and in working with your whoever you're working for and your bosses. The other one was, and I've got my thing covered up and I'll move it. My moral compass and principles. I've been challenged many times where my principles, things I believe in, have been challenged by people in the workplace. One example, I worked with a person who was my superior, who was an absolute bully, bullied everybody in the workplace. It was a huge challenge for all of us. And I think at the end of the day, you have to make a decision, as I did, whether you stay or whether you go, whether you put up with it or not, whether you challenge them or not. And I won't go into the details, but it is really important. You have to be flexible. I understand that, but you have to, there's a bottom line that the minute you cross over that line, whatever that line is that you've drawn for yourself, you'll find it hard to come back. So, you know, my recommendation and my advice is stick to your principles as much as you can. One of the things I didn't do earlier on, and now I'm looking at the box, which is in the middle on the left, is I didn't share a lot of stuff with people. And because of that, I suffered. I suffered because I didn't improve, I didn't grow, I didn't learn. And so for me, accidentally finding a mentor, which I did accidentally, led me to more mentors and looking at people who could not just help me in my career, but help me as a person grow. And I think it's so important. And that's why I've been doing some mentoring work here in Perth and in my workplace and now with Opportunities Australia. You can learn from people and they can help you. And there are so many people out there willing to help. And I think if you can take that opportunity, it's terrific. In my work trajectory I talked to you about, and when I speak to people and mentor and coach people, you know, if you're looking for growth in your workplace, and think about what skills you need, think about what you need to do in terms of your own skill development, and then search for work that will allow you to do that and opportunities, even within your current role, to do that. Enjoy what you do. I didn't always smile. I still don't always smile. I've got this natural frown, I think. But anyway, when you smile, others smile too, and it makes both life and work far more enjoyable for you. The box down the bottom on the left, take opportunities for job enrichment. That's what I've done in my 16 jobs. I've just taken opportunities, and it's been enriching for me. And can I just say, I didn't go overseas and work until 2014. I could have gone earlier, but I didn't take the opportunity. And it's not a regret, but it's something I would advise anybody. If you have the opportunity to work overseas or to work in an international setting, take that opportunity as much as you can. Use your common sense. And I've realized working in government so many years as I have, there's very little common sense in government. So I learned from a colleague of mine early on that you've got to just be straightforward and commonsensical about your work and be accepting of change. It seems to come natural to me, but it doesn't come natural to a lot of people. And you'll find that you'll be with people who think of change as being not normal, whereas it is. Change is just, it happens all the time, and you've got to be resilient enough to accept it. So, having said that, I wish you all the best. And if you'd like to connect, I'm around. Thanks, Emmy. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, John, for those wonderful words. You know, you touched based upon so many interesting things there for us to learn, starting from building good teams, being ethical and loyal, enjoying what you do. Sometimes people enter into a lot of job roles and a lot of things which they don't want to do or they are not passionate about. They don't enjoy it. And then after a year or so, they realize it. So I think that's really great learning points that you have raised there. And thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. We would now be moving towards the final segment of today's session and inviting Michel Cuello. She founded the Lantern Partners to address a need in media and digital companies, large and small, who require access to senior finance expertise outside of their existing team. Michel also works with large companies such as Yahoo 7, Foxtel, and 20th Century Fox, as well as SMEs and startups, utilizing her experience as a chartered accountant and 15 years in the industry as well, helping them to achieve real results in an ever-changing world. Her specialty lies in helping businesses understanding their financials, offering strategic and commercial finance advice, and providing hands-on support to ensure that they achieve their goals. So there is a lot of important things that she's doing, and I'm sure that her tips are going to be a major driving force for a lot of people who are listening to her today. So now I will pass it on to Michel. We are really excited to listen to what you have to say.
Oh, thank you very much. Very kind introduction. Lucky last. I shall attempt not to put all of you to sleep and share a little bit of my journey. Just checking you can see my screen there. Yeah, just hopefully it feels very self-indulgent to be kind of sitting here just chatting about myself. But I hope you guys will be able to take away something from my journey and the various winding roads that I've taken on my way to get here. So it's never a straight line. So moving through. Let's see if I can make my screen work. Okay, so like Aditi, this little girl is me. I'm sure those of you who are active on LinkedIn have seen this campaign going around in the last month or so, with the premise being, I guess, very much like today's premise, that you cannot be what you cannot see. And that the more that we share our journeys and share how we got to be where we are today, the more people will be able to see kind of the different and varied opportunities and routes you can take. And, you know, it's a little bit of a theme of mine, but it's never a straight line from A to B. So just a bit of background. I actually grew up in the UK. My parents were both first-generation immigrants to the UK, one from Norway, so a Viking and a Singaporean. They actually quite strangely met in Scotland, but they eventually settled in England. Despite the fact that I eventually ended up in a finance role, my whole school career was very much about the arts. It was all about English and history and, you know, all of very typical art subjects. It wasn't until much later on that I diverted off into finance. I don't think anyone was more shocked than my parents when I decided I was going to start on the graduate program at PwC. They were very surprised. The reason why and I'll kind of come back to this theme a little bit as well, is the reason why I ended up choosing that discipline in the end, despite my arts bent all through school. My mum's actually a chartered accountant, practiced sort of very lightly as we were growing up. But after I finished university, she was working on a hotel project in London where they were literally kind of knocking through 4 kind of terraced houses in London and turning it into a townhouse hotel. And I suppose that was my first taste of what finance could be beyond my impressions of it being kind of a very dry and technical career. And I'll share a little bit more about that later. Professional services life wasn't for me. In the graduate scheme, I spent most of my time in the audit division. I did spend my time kind of dealing with media companies primarily, which I loved. I think in terms of a great business grounding, that audit experience was really, really helpful, because the nature of the job is that you just go in and you look at lots and lots of different companies, talk to lots of different businesses, the finance team, but also, you know, very senior people in there. I used to find it very comical that at the age of 22, 23 and knowing pretty much nothing, I got to walk into, you know, directors' offices and CEOs' offices and kind of grill them about certain things, which I was wholly inexperienced to do. But it was very entertaining and a real learning experience. But I got out as soon as I got my chartered accountancy qualification, because what I really wanted to be doing is working more with businesses and looking at where their financials could take them, as opposed to audit, where you're very much kind of looking at historical financials. What I was really interested in is what these businesses would do next, what their plans were, what the risks were, and how they could move forward. So I went into a discipline of finance, which is broadly called commercial finance, or FP&A, financial planning and analysis. And that's really very much about kind of working with businesses on budgets and forecasts and business cases, and what they call business partnering within those organizations. And I stayed within the discipline of media, marketing and tech, and I loved it. So the first job that I had after leaving PwC, I went to work at Reuters. They were the last publishing company based on Fleet Street. So I got a real kick out of that. And then went to work for a little TV distribution company that was specializing in music documentaries and things like that, which was also, you know, really, really kind of interesting business to work in. But then early 2003, the rug got pulled out from under me. I got made redundant from the role at the TV distribution company, which I wasn't expecting. And you know, it's not much fun as an experience as a, you know, mid-20s. At the time, around that time, the job markets, particularly in kind of that sort of media marketing technology, it was still really feeling the effects of the dot-com bust, because I'm that old. Jobs were pretty difficult to come by. And my then partner, now husband, who works in marketing, was finding the same thing. He got made redundant a few months before. And we kind of just looked at each other and went, there's no better time just to take off. So we basically bought a round the world ticket. We grabbed our backpacks and headed off traveling around the world. But we didn't get any further than Australia. So we landed in Australia after about 4 or 5 months into this year away, and said, well, you know, we quite like Australia. This seems nice. We'll stay till it stops being fun. And we had that conversation every year. 10 years later, we didn't seem to have gone anywhere. We were, I think, thinking of buying a house, and we finally had to come to terms with the fact that we may actually live in Australia now. So to John's point of, you know, plans are important, but not always that important. There was definitely no plan to stay in Australia. In fact, I think our parents have only just about forgiven us 20 years into our stint in Australia, which was supposed to be a 1-year round the world trip. But one of the reasons why we stayed is I got a job in Foxtel, which I really enjoyed. I started there on a 1-month contract and moved through a number of roles. I think I got made permanent after a year. I think I went through every visa. I started on a working holiday visa, then moved to a sponsorship visa, then eventually got my permanent residency. And Foxtel was a really exciting place to work. I worked primarily with the TV production guys, and we were, before Foxtel moved up to North Ryde, they were down on the wharfs in Darling Harbour in Piedmont. And I think the first winter I was there, 2 whales swam into Darling Harbour, and I was looking out of the window of my office in Piedmont onto the water going, okay, this is why I'm going to stay here, the job and the whales. Then I was at Foxtel for about 5 years, really, really enjoyed it. There were some not fun bits, but what I realised through my time working at Foxtel is basically the opportunity in the digitisation of content. That, and I had a vague inkling in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something on my own. At some point, it was a very half-formed idea, but I had enough foresight, thank goodness, even though it didn't feel very planned at the time, that I knew that if I was ever going to go out on my own, I needed to build my network. And if I had only ever had one job in Australia, my network was pretty small. So I was offered a job at Yahoo 7, and both these JVs now no longer exist, but along with 9MSN, Australia was the only country where you'd had 2 digital internet companies, internet portal companies, back when that was a thing, who had joined with 2 of the major media brands to bring content digitally and to kind of do the first forays into streaming and digital content. And again, that was a really, really interesting time within the industry. And I was there for almost 3 years, I think, before I finally took the plunge and went to set up on my own. There was very little planning involved. I'd actually got to a point where I was very burnt out in my role. Commercial finance roles are generally extremely long hours. I think I was kind of regularly working sort of 60+ hours per week, and I was exhausted. I had this idea cooking up in the back of my mind for a while that I wanted to go out on my own. Both my parents were actually self-employed, when I started Lantern Partners Virtual CFO Services, which is where companies who can't afford and don't need a full-time CFO resource, but need some of the advice that a CFO can give that's sort of beyond bookkeeping. It's not tax. It's really that commercial and strategic finance and business partnering support. It didn't really exist. So it was a bit of a leap of faith to start up at the time. And then I got the fear as I started, because suddenly everybody was offering virtual CFO services, and I just thought, oh my God, I've blown it. Everybody's doing this, there's no chance. But slowly, the business grew. I had a couple of kids who are now 8 and 3 through that journey. Yeah, the business has been going for 10 years now. We just had our 10-year birthday. Which is, I still have to pinch myself to really believe, but we're here, and yeah, it's been fascinating. But I wanted to show this image. You guys have probably seen this before, but you know, when you look at someone's career path and when you hear it in little bite-sized pieces, it sounds so logical, the way that they've progressed through jobs and they've progressed through decisions. But my goodness, I know very, very few people for whom that's been the way. There are highs, there are lows, there are back steps, there are shoots forward, and it's complicated. And it is, it's very easy to, I think, assume that everybody else has got it worked out. But if they say that they do, they're generally lying. Nobody's got it worked out. And I think the most successful people I know, and, you know, that's a very subjective measure of success in itself. You know, like, you know, John was saying, just leapt into opportunities, and those opportunities take you closer and closer, I think, to your end goal. If you have a goal in mind, even if it's kind of a very ephemeral goal that you have in terms of, you know, maybe the place you want to end up in your life, the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life you can craft, and work is just one part of that. Those leaps kind of bring you closer and closer to that goal, but it probably won't always feel like that. And certainly my career path has felt every bit as wiggly and knotted as this image from time to time. And so I think to really be honest about your journey and kind of what's the things that have brought you to the place you are now, and the place I am now, I think it's, you know, good to share the highs and lows. And as I was writing these down, there were a surprising amount of highs where there was almost an equal and opposite low almost at the same time. So you know, there was a high point when I was working for the TV distribution company really early on in my career. I think I can only have been about 24 or 25. And I was financial controller at this TV distribution company. So happy with life. And one of their salespeople resigned at the last minute, just before this big kind of TV distribution market that happens every year in Cannes called MIP TV. And so they asked me if I wanted to go. And they said, you go and talk to all the people that haven't got good enough ideas to actually have a meeting with us, and just go and find out what they want and what they're selling. And so I wandered around having the most extraordinary conversations with people. I think one of them was it was a Danish radio company that had some Frank Zappa interviews that they had kind of remastered, and kind of they'd had filming behind it and wanted to sell as a documentary. And I'm sitting there at kind of, 24-year-old accountant going, I don't know what I'm doing, but I had an absolute blast. Definitely a high point early on in my career. But I remember at the time kind of being in that job, and also at Reuters beforehand, and for fair few times at PwC where I knew I wasn't in the right job. The fact that that was my high point of my first 5 years of working probably told me I was in the wrong job. And there's nothing more frustrating than knowing that the job you're in isn't the right one for you, but you don't quite know where you're supposed to be yet. You know, and coming over, backpacking through, you know, went through Southeast Asia and then kind of came over to Australia, was fantastically exciting. Landing in Australia, kind of working things out, really exciting. But, you know, all those multiple visas we went through was pretty stressful. And, you know, fighting through the frankly Kafkaesque immigration applications and, you know, hoping that you've got the application. I remember sitting bolt upright in bed at 3 a.m. one morning thinking that I put the wrong thing on my permanent residency form and it was all going to be a disaster and it was going to be thrown out. Thank goodness it wasn't. But, you know, I mean, I went through a working holiday visa, went through a sponsorship visa. My partner had got a sponsorship visa early on and then decided he hated the job 2 weeks later. And so basically, you know, he lost his working holiday visa. He no longer had a sponsorship visa. And so I had to go de facto onto my visa. And it was a really uncertain time. And I'm sure, as most of you guys know, you know, it's very isolating going through all of that uncertainty when you're on the other side of the world from your family. You know, one of the things I'll talk about a little bit later is kind of, you know, really, really important is kind of building your support networks around you, whether that's in a work scenario or whether that's in a personal scenario. It's really, really important. So I would urge you all to kind of think on that when you're making your plans as well, or your no plan plans. When I was working at Foxtel, also working at Yahoo 7, you know, also working in the media jobs that I had in the UK, one of the things I really loved about working in those jobs is I was working with such passionate, creative people. And we work with a lot of startups and scale-ups now, and primarily we're engaged by founder CEOs who have that same kind of, you know, drive, that single-mindedness. But, you know, like I say, in the lows, there's a downside to that. It means that things can be very emotional and, you know, someone who lives and dies by their job, you know, when things go wrong, they feel that very, very deeply. And because they do, you will too. And that can be an amazing thing, but also it can be kind of quite a hard thing to deal with, I think, particularly when you're first starting out in your career. So you know, that again is kind of the yin to the yang of the high. You know, we're within Lantern Partners now. What we do is we help a lot of businesses achieve the outcomes that they want to, and for those founder CEOs, a lot of that is around selling their business. I got my first taste of that when I was at Yahoo 7. On the buy side, buying a few companies, and, you know, again, fantastically exciting, helping the businesses kind of get the outcomes that they want, bringing on new businesses to help the existing businesses grow. And again, it's, you know, when you go through those processes, it's a time of really high intensity, and also working with fantastically intelligent people who you learn an awful lot from. So that, you know, it's definitely been a high through my career as well. But I think I alluded to the fact that when I left my last corporate job, it was exciting. I didn't have a plan, but I very much left because I couldn't continue working in that job anymore. Partly through the frustration of being in a job that isn't right for you, partly through, you know, working with very creative and passionate people that, you know, if you don't learn to put certain boundaries around you, can be quite emotionally draining as well. And I was frazzled. I was really burnt out. And I actually just needed to take a moment to breathe, because I wasn't really able to breathe at work. You know, I probably could have been a little bit more planned about it and a little more logical in terms of my exit strategy, but that didn't turn out to be the way that I did it. And it worked out, but you know, I would challenge you all to kind of think about how you know, you exist within your jobs. And I think you know, when your job is absolutely everything to you, I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing, much as you enjoy it. And so, you know, you are precious, and, you know, your energy is precious, and, you know, what you have to give to the world is precious. And if you get burnt out, you're not really serving anyone, least of all yourself. But, you know, I certainly kind of 10 years into the business, you know, I still get a real kick out of what we do, in terms of helping businesses grow, in terms of getting those founder CEOs the outcome they want. I've been lucky enough to build the most incredible team around me who are all absolute guns, and I really enjoy working with them, and it's a huge privilege to be working with them and have them to agree to be part of Lantern Partners. But you know, that anxiety of, oh my goodness, this might not last. That imposter syndrome of, oh my goodness, any minute now somebody's going to find out that actually I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just figuring it out as I go, you know, go along. You know, that's real. And you know, when we have clients wrap up, because one of the things that I'm very clear with clients about when we bring them on board is that a mark of our success is when they don't need us anymore. And that's either when they've graduated, you know, very, very fitting audience to talk about graduating, when they've graduated beyond a part-time or outsourced resource, and they're big enough, and, you know, they're profitable enough, cash flow ready enough to actually, you know, bring in their own permanent finance team, which may include a CFO, or, you know, they sell their business. We no longer become part of their puzzle. And, you know, that's for a really good reason. It means that we've helped them achieve the outcomes that they want. So, you know, it's always a bittersweet moment when, you know, you help them get those outcomes, and then you wrap up the work for them. And then, you know, for me anyway, kind of get the fear that we'll never get another client. But thankfully, we always have, and long may that continue. So, things I wish I'd known when I started out, when I was sitting where you are now, which feels like many moons ago and 5 minutes ago. I think when I first started on my career journey, and part of the reason, you know, I gave a very positive reason why I ended up in doing a graduate scheme at PwC, but I didn't really know many other options. I hadn't really figured out what it was that other people did for a job. You know, my family and my family friends kind of came from quite traditional careers. You know, my dad was a dentist, my mum was an accountant. You know, there were lawyers and doctors and, you know, engineers in the family, and kind of that's just what we did. Maybe if I'd known a bit more about, you know, different types of careers out there, jobs that I didn't even realize existed, let alone I could do, you know, the path may have been different. And so I would encourage you all to speak to as many people as you can. You know, I assume kind of if you're not on LinkedIn, go and have a scoot around LinkedIn, look at people's jobs, go down a rabbit hole in terms of what people do for a living, listen to all the podcasts, you know, talk to your friends, talk to family friends, talk to friends of friends, because there are some amazing jobs out there, and such niche jobs as well, which, like I said, I didn't even know half these jobs existed when I started out. And because of that, you know, I think I've had quite a few sliding doors moments through my career. And if I'd taken one of those other options, I don't think that would have been a bad thing. It wouldn't have been a better thing. It wouldn't have been a worse thing. It just would have been a different thing. And maybe I would have ended up in a different place, but maybe it would have actually taken me right back where I am today. There is no one right answer. And I think that sometimes you can get very taken up with, being scared of making the wrong decision. There really are very, very few wrong decisions, in my view. It just takes you on a slightly different path. And if that's not the path you're meant to be on, then, there's always a way back. Relationships are everything, as far as I'm concerned. How you interact with people at work, how you interact with the people you meet on a day-to-day basis, and the relationships you build through all of those experiences are really, really key. And networking has a very kind of grubby connotation, but all it is meeting people. All it is finding out being interested in other people, finding out what other people do. It's not about what you can get from them. It's about having a conversation, and that's how you build relationships. Those relationships are fundamental to where you end up in life, I think. And, I still have some incredibly close friends from, when I first started at Foxtel. I've been in Australia almost 20 years now, and a couple of weeks' time, I'm meeting up again with friends that I made at the time when I first, arrived with my kind of borrowed suit and my small backpack bag, because I'd had no work bag when I rocked up at Foxtel, and they're still really good friends of mine. Obviously, get a mentor. I'm very lucky to be working with Opportunities Australia and able to, mentor other people. And also, I've really been helped by mentors through my journey as well. Again, just one type of relationship that you can have through your working career, but learning from those who have trodden the path before you is really important, and can be a shortcut to educating yourself about the opportunities out there. Don't burn bridges, for the same reason that relationships are everything. You will be shocked how small the world is once you start working. You can move countries and you will still end up bumping into someone that you used to work with, or your parents know, or your friends know. It constantly surprises, baffles, and interests me how small the world is, especially today. Keep those relationships, much as it's very tempting, particularly if you're in a job that doesn't suit you, to exit in a blaze of glory. It's never the wise choice for so many reasons. Build your village, and by that I mean get your support structure, and that's on a personal level, a professional level. And as I've moved through different life stages, as I had my children, I built my mum village. And when I first moved to Australia, I had to recreate a family here because I didn't have an immediate family. And those relationships and those villages, I built my work village. They're really important, and they'll sustain you and support you through difficult times. And all of those experiences will teach you something, be they good, bad, or mediocre. Try and take some lesson from them, because that's how you build your arsenal of experience and learnings which inform your future decisions. This next one's really important. It's okay to have boundaries. I remember when I was in a particularly challenging job, in one of those jobs which had many, many hours and constant demands on your time. I was chatting to my mum in floods of tears about kind of not being able to do everything that I needed to do, to feel like I was constantly disappointing everyone. And she asked me, if someone gave you a teaspoon and asked you to empty the lake, would you feel bad because you weren't able to do it, or you think they're pretty stupid for giving you a teaspoon to empty a lake? And I've never been able to forget that analogy. And, you know, I still need to exercise the muscle and still need to practice it. But, you know, one of the fundamental things I learned, you know, after I got burnt out, because that's no fun, is saying no is okay. And saying no sometimes is the respectful choice, and it's the wise choice, and it's the honest answer when too much is being asked of you. So I think it's really important to have those boundaries, and in order to have them, you need to know what's important to you, because only you know what is okay and what isn't okay. Having said I've had no plan, and the irony is that I spend most of my working life telling people they need to have a plan, telling businesses that it's really important to plan, because if you don't plan, then you're not going to get where you want to go to. So look, having a loose framework or a goal that you want to achieve really does help. It stops you wandering too far off to the left and right before you come back to what you really should be doing. Comparison is a thief of joy. I know this sounds like I've kind of, you know, swallowed a book of inspirational quotes, but this one is really, really true. And it goes back to the wiggly line I was talking about. You know, it may seem like everybody has this very clear path, a really good idea if they want, where they want to go. You know, social media can be terrible for that, even if it's professional social media like LinkedIn. You know, it becomes very easy to compare your whole life to the curated version of someone else's. You know, it's very hard not to do, but only you know if you're on the right path. Okay. And things will go wrong. So make resilience and adaptability your superpowers, because, and I'm constantly fascinated because they teach this even in primary school now, and they teach really young kids how to be resilient. Stuff that I was never taught at school, and frankly, I feel like they should, you know, come into most of the workplaces that I've been working in and come and teach what they're teaching the you know, the 5 and 6 year olds now about learning to take risks and it being okay to fail, and all of those things that are so critical to surviving setbacks, and picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and continuing on. So I'll leave you with that thought. If you want to reach out and connect, my details are here, but good luck out there. And you know, you're about to embark on this amazing adventure, and you know, I really would encourage you to think of it as an adventure, as opposed to you know, this puzzle that you've got to solve, or a thing you've got to get right. It's an adventure, so enjoy it. Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that insightful, inspiring presentation, Michelle. Learning is a journey and has no end to it. So we'll be here again tomorrow to learn more with valuable insights that were put across by our guest speakers. I'd like to thank all of speakers, Opportunity Australia, our UNSW or UNSW Postgraduate Council, and our wonderful audience for making this happen today. We hope to see you all tomorrow sharp at 6 p.m. as well for day 2 for this Mentorship Conclave. So before we end today's session and take you all to the networking part of the event in the breakout rooms to meet the speakers on a one-on-one basis, we'll be playing the thank you note for today's event passed on to us by the PGC Vice President, Diana Zhang.
On behalf of the Postgraduate Council, I want to express our sincere thanks to Kumar from Opportunities Australia and our special guests and mentors here tonight for hosting Season 2 of the Mentorship Conclave. So thank you, Kumar, Aditi, John, and Michelle for your time and support in making tonight's event possible. I also want to thank our wonderful hosts, Surab and Emmy from the Postgraduate Council. So please join me in thanking them by clicking the virtual clapping hands icon below. Tonight, we've been encouraged by the advice, wisdom, and experiences presented to us by our amazing mentors. As Oprah says, a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself. So thank you to our mentors for inspiring a great sense of hope inside all of us. And make sure you join us tomorrow night for day 2 of the Mentorship Conclave. Finally, if you like tonight's event, all recordings are available on the Postgraduate Council's Facebook page and YouTube channel. We also have a number of exciting events coming up, including a special panel discussion on empowering female identifying leaders in STEM and entrepreneurship, and a workshop on how to prepare a perfect elevator pitch. So for more details and to book, please check out our Facebook page. Once again, thank you to Opportunities Australia and our guests here tonight, and to all of you for being here. The Postgraduate Council looks forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Thank you very much for having us, Diana, Emmy, Saurabh, and all of you to be present. I hope you have gotten something out of this, a bit of an experience, but yeah, well, you are really embarking on a great journey out there, and really wishing you luck. And we are always here whenever you need something, a mentoring opportunity or a job. We are forming relationship with corporates as well as, other organizations as well. So we are out here working for you. So, whenever you need something, let us know. We are only an email or a phone call away. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kumar. Now I'm forming 4 breakout rooms. So students, if they want to join different breakout rooms, or whoever is here, if they want to join breakout rooms, they can talk to the speakers directly. So I'll stop the recording and I'll put each of the speakers into one breakout room, and then others can join in whichever room they want to enter into and talk to their respective speakers.